Hi guys, it's Steph here, and today I'm going to bring you my October wrap up. So this month I read 17 books, and most of them I read in the second half of the month, which is why I didn't split this video into two parts, because by the time the first half of the month was gone, I hadn't really read that many books, and then I really read a lot in the last half of this month. So let's get started. So the first book I read this month was Caraval by Stephanie Garber, which is a book that I received as an e-arc from NetGalley. I did give this book 5 out of 5 stars. It is the story of Scarlett and her sister Teller and their experiences at this mystical carnival called Caraval. So it's very Night Circus-esque and it's beautiful, and it is very different to the Night Circus though. I mean, the theme is sort of similar, but the actual execution of it is really different, and I really love the characters. I really love Scarlett as a character. She's a character who makes mistakes, and she's a character who is desperate to try and find answers to things that just haven't been explained to her yet. So it's a really great story. It is released in January. I'll leave a link to my review or my blog review down below, and you can check out what I thought about that one. I also read and reviewed a copy of Disney's adaptation of Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas as a manga, and that was a really interesting version. It's different. I mean, it loses something in translation from being a film to being a graphic novel, but it was still very interesting, and I did enjoy reading it. I did enjoy revisiting that world and those characters with Jack Skellington and Sally and all the characters that surround it. It was a fun read. Didn't take very long to get through it at all. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. A good read. Then I also read the graphic novel adaptation of Charlene Harris's Grave Surprise, which is one of the Harper Connolly mysteries stories, and that was a really good graphic novel. I haven't read the actual book series, so I can't comment on how it translates from the novel to the graphic novel, but I did enjoy it. It was really nice to meet the characters in this book, and I am now really curious to pick up the Harper Connolly mysteries, because I have read the Sookie Stackhouse series by Charlene Harris, but never read anything else by her. So that was a really nice introduction, I think. And I gave Grave Surprise 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read this month was Fearless by Fiona Higgins. This was sent to me as a Goodreads prize. I did enter a competition to win this, so it was sent to me by Allen and Unwin. And this is a contemporary fiction novel. It is about a group of people from all over the world who travel to Bali to be part of a fearless retreat to address their fears, and some of these fears they fully acknowledge, others they don't even really realize what they have. And the first part of this story is really it's a real contemporary sort of story, because the characters are getting to know each other. They're getting to understand why they've actually come to this retreat and what they have to do to address the fears that stop them from doing things in their life. And then about halfway through the novel, it does take a turn, because something quite tragic happens, and then this is about how they deal with it and how they move on and how they survive. So this was a really great novel. I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I would highly recommend you check it out. It was really nice to see some really interesting Australian characters written there by an Australian author as well. I was planning on reading at least one more book in the Skullduggery Pleasant series, and I actually read the last 3 in the main series. So I started off with Kingdom of the Wicked, Last Stand of Dead Men, and The Dying of the Light, which is book 7, 8, and 9 of the Skullduggery Pleasant series, which is a middle grade fiction book. Obviously, being this far into the series, I'm not going to go into too much detail about them. What I will say is I really love the characters. I really loved the interplay between the main characters, and there were quite a few twists and turns and things that I didn't expect. The last book, while it did wrap up the story quite nicely, and there is a nice open ending in here, part of it I thought was a little bit predictable. Overall, it didn't really affect my reading experience, because I was just happy to see how everything played out in the end and how it was resolved. So Kingdom of the Wicked I gave 4 out of 5 stars. Last Stand of Dead Men I think I also gave 4 stars, might even be 4.5. And The Dying of the Light I gave 4 out of 5 stars. A great series. If you haven't read it, I do highly recommend it. I am going to be trying to finish off the novellas next month, and that way I will have completely finished this series before the end of the year, and that is my goal. I also read Roseblood by A.G. Howard this month. Again, this was another e-arc sent to me by NetGalley for review, and I really enjoyed it. It is a Phantom of the Opera sort of retelling, or extension, really. And actually, this is a bit of a theme this month. I did read a lot of story, not quite sequels, but extensions, and Roseblood definitely fits that. It was a really interesting story. I thought that the mythology that was built up in it was really quite good. It's a very atmospheric, and the characters are really appealing. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the story, it is about a young girl named Brune who is sent to a arts conservatory in France. She is American, and all her life she's sort of been plagued by music. She has this really incredible talent, and I won't go into it because that would be spoilers, but it's caught inside of her, and so it causes all sorts of problems. And so she goes to this arts conservatory, her mother drops her off, and once she's there, weird things start happening, and she meets a very mysterious character named Thorn, who plays a huge part in the story and the Phantom of the Opera sort of mythology. This one is also a little bit creepy. There is a bit of a paranormal twist in it, so go into it expecting that, but I did really like it, and I was just hanging out to find out exactly what was going on. I gave Rosebud 4 out of 5 stars. I really loved it. I highly recommend you check it out once it's released. This month I also read the graphic novel Battlestar Galactica 6, which focuses on the character 6 from the Battlestar Galactica series. I really like her as a character. I always thought she was fantastic in the show, and I really liked her stories, and this was really interesting to see how she got from what she was initially to the character that we met at the very start of the miniseries, but I really loved it. I gave Battlestar Galactica 6 4 out of 5 stars. I also read Spindle by Shona Slayton, which is another e-arc that I was sent. This is a Sleeping Beauty sequel. So it's not a retelling, although there are elements of a retelling in it. As the story goes on, we do hear a little bit about the original Sleeping Beauty tale. But in this story, Briley is a character in the story. She's not related to Briar Rose from the Sleeping Beauty myth, and she is living in turn of the century America, and she is working in a mill. She's trying to support her family, which includes her younger brothers and sister, and she is trying to raise enough money that she can actually look after them independently. So there is a huge big part of this book that is about women's rights movements in the early days. There is also the Sleeping Beauty aspect to it, which I thought was really, really well done. This is not a fast-paced book. It is quite slow, and for once I didn't mind that. This one was really quite interesting because I wasn't familiar with this time in American history, so that was quite interesting to read about. I also really liked the characters. I will say that the only thing that I didn't really like about this book was that one of the male characters was in it far more than I thought he should have been. I don't think he was a necessary character. And there was one character who should have been in it more. And it made up for it in the end, and it was a really interesting spin on the Sleeping Beauty myth. And it's got all the characters that you know and love. There's the fairies, the good fairies and the wicked fairy, and there's the spindle, and there's weaving, and it's a really lovely extension of that story. And I gave Spindle 4 out of 5 stars. So it's a real 4 out of 5 star month for me. Next, I read The Four Legendary Kingdoms by Matthew Reilly. This came out this month, and I really, really loved it. It's not perfect, and I'll fully admit that. I think I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The one thing that I didn't particularly like, and I know I've talked about this with a few people, is that the female characters that Matthew Reilly normally includes weren't included as well in this. I just think that they were given a back seat. There was a twist in here, and there was characters included that I was not expecting, and I really, really liked it. So this is definitely setting up for the last couple of books in this series. Obviously, I think he's going to count down to 1. So this started with 7 Ancient Wonders, and we're up to 4. I can't wait to see where this series goes. I do really like the characters in the Jack West Jr. series. I just think they're fun and they're interesting. I still haven't found anything that grips me as quickly and makes me want to read as fast as Matthew Reilly's books. So I will forever be a fan. Then I read Gemina by Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff. This came in a YA Chronicles box, and I'll put my unboxing somewhere up here for you. This is the sequel to Illuminae, so I won't go into too much detail except to say that it is a sort of sequel / companion book to it. I think you do need to have read Illuminae to understand most of what's going on in this book and some of the characters and why everything is sort of so frantic. This one did take me a little bit longer to get into. I didn't find that I liked the characters of Hannah and Nick straight away. So Hannah and Nick are based on Space Station Heimdall, which is the jump station that the characters in Illuminae are trying to get to. There's a whole lot of stuff going on at Heimdall that even the people there don't understand. And Nick and Hannah are caught up in it, and they're forced to work together to survive. Overall, I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. As always, there is amazing artwork. It's told in the form of documents and chats and emails. I just really like this style of book. It's so unique. But yes, I really like this one. Okay, the next book I read this month was Infinity by Jozzicato. It is the first book in the Infinity Division series. This book is about a girl named Corey who is suddenly attacked by a stranger who she's never met before and finds herself thrown into this world of real kind of mystery and intrigue. And it's very overwhelming for her because she sent these two people to guard her, and both of them react very strangely to her, as if they already know her and she's never met them. And as it turns out, this book is a series about parallel universes and characters who travel from one universe to the next. They are tracking down this guy who's come out to kill Corey, and we don't find out why for much of the book. It's a really interesting sort of take on the parallel universes sort of theme. I do really like parallel universe books. I haven't read very many this year, but I really liked the way that this book's technology facilitated the travel between parallel universes, and the way that the characters could interact with people from that world as well as themselves from those worlds. So it was really interesting. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I am really intrigued to see where the series goes. I also read The Call by Peter O'Gilla. I'm probably butchering that name. This book is a book about teenagers in Ireland who, once they reach adolescence, risk being called. And the call lasts for 3 minutes and 4 seconds, and they'll either return alive but changed, or they come back dead. And it's this terrifying event that the whole of the country knows about, so that they're preparing the kids for it. You know, the mystery is, why are they being called? How are they going to prevent it? Can they survive? Sort of thing. A lot of people I know on BookTube have reviewed this and have said that it was terrifying and horrifying and all sorts of things. I didn't find that. It was creepy. I'll grant you that. It was creepy and I enjoyed it, but I didn't feel the same level of horror at what seemed to be going on. Maybe I'm just familiar with the myths, and I've seen too many things done with the characters that are the people that are calling the characters in this book, and I won't say who it is because that would be spoilers, and I don't want to spoil anyone. Personally, it didn't affect me so badly. I really enjoyed the book. I thought it was told in a really interesting way. We have multiple character perspectives. We get to see flashes of what happens over in the Greylands, which is where the characters are taken, as well as the world that has resulted as from all of these teenagers being taken. I think I gave The Call 3.5 out of 5 stars. Like I said, I enjoyed it. Good sort of creepy read. Then I read Saga Volume 1 by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. This was a book that or a graphic novel I should say, that I've been seeing everywhere on BookTube and everyone raving about it, and I saw it in a bookstore and decided I'm going to get that. And I did. I really enjoyed it. It was a really unique world that's been built up. So you've got 2 characters who are from 2 opposing sides in a war, who've met, who've fallen in love and who've had a kid, and suddenly everyone is after them. The worlds that it takes place on is really interesting. The characters themselves and the histories of these people, as they've been revealed in the first volume, are really fascinating. It is a mature book. I wouldn't give it to really young people. It is quite graphic. If I see volume 2, I'm going to pick it up definitely and continue reading the series. Next, I read Talking to My Country by Stan Grant. This was a book that was recommended to me by Kirsty from Melbourne on My Mind. This was a really powerful book. It is Stan Grant's response to the incident with Adam Goodes in Australian rules football a few years ago. A lot of this book is his personal history and his relationship with his culture and his country. This one I would say is not really for the faint heart, because it is quite confronting as an Australian to read this book. I think everyone should read it, absolutely. I think it's really important that Indigenous issues are brought to light, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I read it in one night and I was just sitting there reflecting on everything that I thought I knew. So highly recommend it. Great book. Definitely read it if you get a chance to. Gosh, this video is going to be huge. The last book that I read this month was Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, which is the first book in the Grisha trilogy. I did pick up Crooked Kingdom when it was released, and I was going to read that because I have read Six of Crows. Didn't quite get to it this month, and everyone has been talking about how you should definitely read the Grisha trilogy before you read Crooked Kingdom. I wasn't going to do it because I'm not really into that sort of mentality, but I have all the books and I just decided that I would read Shadow and Bone. So I'm going to try and read the rest of the series next month. If you're not familiar with the series, it takes place in Ravka, and our main character Alina and her best friend Mal have grown up together in an orphanage. They're part of the First Army, and one day Alina is discovered to have Grisha abilities and is taken by the Darkling to be trained. Things spiral from there. And I know there's a lot of love for all of these characters on BookTube, and I really enjoyed this book. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. I knew a few things that were going to happen, like things that should have been a surprise weren't so much a surprise because I've heard so much about this book. But even when I was reading them, I still felt something. And guys, the twist towards the last half of the book makes me sad. I digress. I really enjoyed it. I can't wait to read the rest of the series and see how it all plays out and what happens to all of the characters. So that's everything that I read this month. Let's see if I can pick it all up. It doesn't even fit in the frame. How ridiculous is that? Plus all the ebooks. So that is everything. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that wherever you're on the world, you're having a wonderful day. If you'd like to see any in-depth book talks about these books, please let me know down below. Let me know what your favourite book that you read this month was, and I will catch you guys in my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.